Hi, I'm Talith, and today we're looking at how damage is calculated in Dune Awakening's PvP system. We'll uncover the hidden soft cap the developers don't talk about, and I'll break down everything I've learned about damage so far. To start, we'll look at unshielded gun damage in PvP. There'll be some math here for nerds, but on the face of it, things aren't that complicated. We'll walk through it step by step so it'll be easier to understand. First, we look at our weapon. In this example, we'll be using a Seath. This grade 5 Seath deals 967 damage. If we augment the Seath with a heavy caliber upgrade and Rafik Snubnose heavy kit, the damage of the two augments is added together, then applied to the gun. With 2 max rolls, the Seath's damage increases to 2320.8. This number tells us how much damage the Seath should do when shooting an unarmored and unshielded target. Next, we need to add the bonuses to damage our character has. This character has bonuses to damage from skills and combat specialization. The Seath's damage gets increased by all our character's damage bonuses combined. Most damage bonuses are additive, which means skills like Energy Capsule are added to our other bonuses, rather than multiplying our current damage dealt. The damage to staggered target bonus from Sabotage and Manipulate Instability is multiplicative, but to keep things simple, we won't be looking at staggered damage today. Our bonuses are 18% range damage from the 2 range damage skills, 15% pistol damage from the weapon type damage skill, and 20% body damage from Center of Mass. These all get added to our combat specialization bonus, which is 100% at level 100, totaling 153% extra damage. We take our augmented gun's damage of 2320.8 and multiply it by 2.53 to account for our character's bonuses, and this gives us a total of 5871.6 damage. In theory, this is the damage our gun will deal to an unshielded and unarmored target. The Seath has a hidden headshot multiplier of ×2, and any headshot bonuses from skills or augments are added onto that multiplier. For example, if the heavy kit had 50% headshot damage, the Seath's headshot multiplier would increase to ×2.5. In most cases, headshot damage is equal to body damage multiplied by this bonus. Next, we're going to see what happens to the Seath's damage when it's reduced by an enemy's damage reduction. In PvP, there are multiple sources of damage reduction, so we need to take several steps to work out the damage. Let's look at a realistic example to see how much damage the Seath will do in PvP. The shooter in this scenario will have the augmented Seath we talked about with 153% bonus damage. The target we'll be firing at is wearing a full set of grade 5 pincushion with 10 perfectly rolled dart mitigation augments. The target also has 100 combat specialization and their shield is currently down. We fire the shot and it hits the target. We start our calculation here with our total gun damage. Next, we take into account the target's armor value of 1636, which gives him a 76.6% damage reduction. Next, we check the target's dart mitigation. All dart mitigation goes into the same bucket, which means dart mitigation from your augments and armor are combined. This gives the target 80.1% dart damage reduction, so we take that away as well. Then we reduce the damage by the target's combat specialization damage reduction of 50%. Finally, we applied the PvP unshielded gun damage reduction of 60% that's always been in the game. This leaves us with 54.7 damage. Now we check this predicted damage against the health lost by the target. Here we see the target only lost 25 health. Our prediction was way off. Let's try this again with a different weapon. This time we'll use a grade 5 perforator with a 70% heavy caliber upgrade augment. We'll go through all the same steps. We take the weapon's listed damage, add our bonuses, then reduce it by the target's damage reduction. This time we predict our 2193.6 damage perforator will deal 52 damage and it actually does. Weird. In theory, this gun should deal comparable damage, but in practice there's a large disparity. So what's happening here? There's another unaccounted for damage reduction system in PvP that's not been factored into our calculations. To find out how it works, we'll go back to our Seath example. Here's the damage we calculated our Seath would do before DR. What I found from extensive testing is that if this number is over 625, a formula kicks in that puts a soft cap on our damage. We're skipping over a lot here, but I augmented and fired 40 different Seaths and here's how the math ended up looking. Let's plug our new formula in and see if it fixes our prediction. Now we predict the Seath will deal 25 damage, which is exactly what we got. But why did the perforator deal more than double this amount? The difference in damage occurs because the soft cap formula isn't actually checking the total gun damage. It's checking the gun's projectile damage. The perforator fires 12 projectiles, so we'll have to divide the perforator's total gun damage of 5549.8 by 12 to see whether the formula applies. The Perforator's projectile damage is only 462.5, which is below the 625 threshold, so the Perforator's damage doesn't get reduced at all. If we calculate the Perforator's damage with this exception in mind, we predict 55, which is exactly what we dealt. Maybe I just got lucky though. A broken clock is still right twice a day after all. We'll shoot the Regis Triple Shot Repeating Rifle to see how this formula holds up. This triple shot deals 2056.2 damage. We add our bonuses, which puts it up to 5202.2 damage. Now to see if the soft cap applies, we divide this damage by 3, because it fires 3 darts at a time. That leaves us with 1734 damage per projectile, so the soft cap will apply. However, this time we'll still deal more damage than the Seethe, because having lower projectile damage makes the soft cap less punishing. With all that in mind, our formula predicts 29 damage. We shoot a test, and 29 damage is the result. Let's look at a graph to better visualize the benefit of using multiple projectile weapons. I plotted some weapons that fire 1, 2, 3, 6, or 12 projectiles. On the left, represented by a light blue line, is weapons that fire a single projectile, like the Seethe. For single projectile weapons, the soft cap starts early and there's a steep decline in damage. The orange line represents a triple shot, a weapon that fires 3 projectiles. By the time we get to 12 projectiles on the opposite end with the Perforator, we almost avoid the soft cap entirely. Okay, there's a soft cap, but what does this actually mean for damage in PvP? It means weapons that fire more projectiles will deal more damage when compared to weapons that fire fewer projectiles, despite having similar listed damage. For example, when comparing a 2000 damage triple shot that shoots 3 projectiles, and a 2000 damage Blind Fury that shoots 1, the triple shot will end up dealing more damage. I've updated my armor spreadsheet so you can see how damage is affected for different weapons. Link in the description. You might think that's it, but even after all that, there's still another source of damage reduction to account for. Near-death damage reduction. Starting at 40%, another layer of DR begins to apply. The damage reduction starts at 0% and gradually increases as your health gets lower, hitting 60% damage reduction once you reach 10% health. In scenarios where someone is two-shotting you, this bonus won't come into play. But on average, you'll be taking 1 or 2 extra shots to kill. Let's look at someone getting shot to better visualize how this works. I'll be using the Dune Companion app to display damage numbers for this test. You can see the Seethe's damage starts at 25 and it decreases gradually until reaching a floor of 12. Wait, 12 damage? Shouldn't it have been reduced to 10? If only it were that simple. The near-death damage reduction is being applied before the soft cap checks our projectile damage. This means that the near-death DR is actually making the soft cap less punishing, which gives the near-death DR the appearance of being less effective in certain situations. In this test, the result is still a 52% reduction in damage, but it really brings into question a lot of things, like why am I doing this to myself, and is this really worth my time? After running some tests, I found that this near-death damage reduction bonus doesn't apply to all sources of damage. Poison and fire damage over time effects, slow blades, and shield damage are not affected. This bonus only applies to unshielded gun damage, including drill shots that penetrate shields, unshielded blade damage, and bleed damage. Because bleed damage is reduced, and poison damage is not, it's probably better to use poison damage to try and finish off a low health opponent that's trying to flee. There's another cap in the game for PvP, except this time it's a hard cap. The Ancient Way rocket launcher's damage gets capped at 150. Here you can see me firing at an unarmored target with an Ancient Way that deals more than 5000 damage, and I only deal 150 damage. When the target has 50% damage reduction from combat, the most I can do is 75 damage. The Ancient Way's damage to shields is unaffected by this cap, which is why it's still a great shield breaker. Shield damage is a pretty simple calculation compared to health damage. We take our weapon's listed shield damage, add our bonuses, then reduce it by the target's combat DR and their power efficiency, which for our purposes acts as a second source of DR. There's a few things of note here. The PvP damage reduction affecting gun damage is absent, there's no soft cap, and combat specialization DR is applying to shields. Armor is ignored when calculating shield damage, and only unique effects like those from circuit gauntlets are factored in. Headshot damage doesn't apply to shields, except for the headshot damage penalty from center of mass, which reduces all headshot damage. I'll briefly touch on some other mechanics. Armor will reduce fire damage, but other damage over time effects like poison and bleed are not affected by armor value DR. Poison is reduced by poison mitigation, in addition to the damage reduction from combat and reckless lunge. Bleed isn't affected by any mitigation effects or armor, but it is reduced by near-death damage reduction, combat specialization DR, and reckless lunge DR. Combat specialization, reckless lunge, and confidence damage reduction are all put into the same bucket for the purposes of calculating damage. This damage reduction bucket is capped at 95%, so at 90 combat with level 3 reckless lunge, he can reach the cap. To illustrate how powerful additive damage reduction is, here's how much damage you would take if reckless lunge didn't stack with combat DR. And here's how it works currently, with both sources of DR in the same bucket. The difference is huge. There's a lot more mechanics to cover in Dune, so if people found this helpful, I'll make more videos of this sort in the future. In any case, you can check out my spreadsheets, which I'll keep up to date with the latest information. Links in the description. If you enjoyed this video, you can like it and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.